400 years, no prophet arose. No revelation was recorded. No instruction came from heaven. The system continued to function. But God did not manifest himself. This is one of the most uncomfortable periods in all of biblical history, because it proves that it is possible to preserve structure, ritual, and tradition, and still lose the voice of God. Today, we will walk through this silence. We will understand when it began, why it happened, and what changed when God spoke again. Silence does not begin suddenly. Before it, there is one final clear intervention. The last prophet of the Old Testament to speak was Malachi. His ministry took place at a very specific moment in Israel's history, after the return from the Babylonian exile. The people had returned to the land. Jerusalem was inhabited once again. The temple, which had been destroyed, had been rebuilt. From a structural perspective, Israel was not in collapse. On the contrary, the city existed. Worship functioned. The altar was active. Religion had been restored. But expectation was greater than reality. The return from exile had been accompanied by hope. There was an expectation of full restoration, an expectation of glory like that of the past, an expectation of a visible intervention from God. What they encountered instead was a weary faith. Malachi speaks to a people who continue to obey, but without enthusiasm, to a system that continues to function but has lost its sense of reverence. The book itself opens with God declaring, "I have loved you," says the Lord. This is not a poetic phrase. It is a direct response to a people who had already begun to question God's care. Throughout his message, Malachi exposes serious problems. The priests were offering defective sacrifices. Sick, crippled, and unworthy animals were placed on the altar. Worship continued, but excellence had disappeared. Religious leadership maintained its position, but no longer its heart. The covenant was treated as obligation, not as a living commitment. The issue was not ignorance of the law, it was indifference. And this is what makes the final word so heavy. God does not close the prophetic period with immediate comfort, but with warning. Malachi announces that before a decisive intervention, a messenger would come, someone who would prepare the way. The promise is clear, but it is also distant. After this word, something unprecedented happens in the biblical text. The narrative simply ends. There is no transition, no continuation, no new prophet emerging. The Old Testament closes here. The temple remains active. The priests continue offering sacrifices. The people continue to worship. But there is no longer a voice. No new revelation is recorded. No instruction is added. No correction comes from heaven. The covenant is not broken. The system is not destroyed. Worship is not interrupted. God does not abandon his people. He becomes silent. And this silence is not brief. It spans generations. What begins with Malachi's final warning becomes one of the longest and most unsettling periods in biblical history, a time in which everything continues to function, but without a new word. The silence that begins after Malachi is not symbolic. It is historical, documented, measurable in time. For approximately 400 years, no recognized prophet arises in Israel speaking in the name of God. No new revelation is recorded. No book is added to the scriptures. No divine word inaugurates a new phase. This interval does not last a single generation. It passes through many. Men are born, grow old, and die without ever hearing a prophetic voice. Entire families live and disappear under the same silent sky. The memory of the great prophets of the past survives only in texts and traditions. And yet,